on this episode, we're going to talk about vault management, hopper systems inside of vaults, how to make sure your group doesn't steal your vault from you. Sort of just more like a informational session for people who are actually leading groups, whatever type of group on zip servers. Anything else to add to that list of things we're talking about, Diet?
Not necessarily. You hit the nail on the head.
All right, so let's talk about vault spikes first and why they're important.
Okay, do you want to start or do you want me to?
Yeah, you can. I've been talking a lot.
Alright, so vault spikes are basically a single spike of reinforcements that are on a different group to the majority of the reinforcements of the vault.
This purple thing right now is what we're saying is the spike.
So this, if we were going to put this in the server terms, this purple wall would be reinforced with a different group than the beacons and the obsidian would be reinforced to.
And why would you reinforce it to a different group?
That's so that we can give certain individuals access to the spike group so that they can access the vault and the chests and refill coal and bounty deposit or free pearls, but we don't trust them enough to give them access to all the wealth that's in the vault, so they can't take down the vault overnight.
Consider these individuals, for people coming from faction servers, to be more like officers. They can still break into the vault and free all the pearls and steal essentially 15 to 30 blocks of obsidian and the reinforcement of those obsidian. But they can't take down the entire vault and the thousands of vault reinforcements and all the obsidian that comes with it. So it's a necessary risk that you have to take to be able to make sure that your group is able to store any pearls that you come across that are from bad people or people you dislike. But it's also a necessary risk. So the other very, very faulty method would be to just have the entire vault on one Citadel group. Anyone who has access then to put pearls in the vault can take down the entire vault during the middle of the night and steal all the wealth in the vault and put it up somewhere else on a new group, which is generally a bad thing. So the general recommendation is to put the vast majority of the vaults on a different private group comprising of the individuals who actually own all of the wealth. Or, on the other hand, if the group contributed to the vault if the group as a whole contributed to the vault to a trusted individual or a leader who won't steal the wealth away from the group. So that's what a vault spike is. The other important thing about vault management is a little bit of a less sexy subject, and that's spreadsheets. It's kind of an integral thing to Civ servers. You're dealing with a lot of individuals who did a lot of different things. So it's really helpful to create a spreadsheet that contains information about all the different pearls that you have in your vault, especially if you're dealing with a vault that has 20, 30, 40, sometimes even more individuals pearled inside of it. It's helpful if you have multiple people who are being held for only a limited time, or even if you're perm-pearling individuals, it's helpful to know what they did, because you're going to come across a pearl that you don't remember. You're not able to find any Reddit threads about them. So it's helpful to keep track of who you have in the vault and what they did. And it's best done in a spreadsheet, honestly. I mean, you could probably try and do just a list, a text list, but it'd be a little unwieldy. On the playpen spreadsheet that I did in Civ 2.0, I actually labeled each of the 4 chests in the vault based on the cardinal direction that they were heading. So north, east, south, west. So the different cardinal directions, I had the different chests labeled as that. Another thing is you can actually label the chests with an anvil if you are feeling extra fancy. So in this little example vault that we created, we also showed off just a very simple hopper technique that we have, which allows you to put a lot of... Actually, no, this doesn't even apply anymore, does it, Diet?
It can apply on different servers depending on how strict they are on one of our hoppers.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so if you're on a server that has PrisonPearl, this can apply. With Exile Pearl, you actually have to physically feed the Pearl with Obsidian, so it doesn't apply as much as it does on other servers. I mean, it still might be useful to have 4 chests and sort of this layout, but only on servers with PrisonPearl where they actually have coal being fed out of chests with this apply. But this design allows you to put a lot of coal to feed a small amount of pearls. And this just makes sure that you're not going to release any pearls overnight because you forgot to feed their coal cost, or whatever cost the servers are charging, gold or whatever else. But again, if it's Exile Pearl, you have to feed it by hand, so it doesn't really make sense to do anything other than a chest vault.
Yeah. This design, though, can take, at best, from when we used it in Playpen in Supercraft 2.0, in a full chest, we'd have 1/3 of the chest dedicated to pearls, and then we'd have, if all the coal chest was full, and then the chest of the pearl satin was also full of coal, each pearl would have 4 stacks of coal, which 2 stacks would equate to 2 weeks. So we could keep people comfortably pearled for roughly a month. And did the vote of PvP just die?
It did. Yeah, it was a long time that we were able to keep people pearled for.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we want to talk about for vault management? Audits are also very good to have. Just to make sure that the right people are on groups. Especially for Bastion groups, you don't want people who switch sides in the middle of the war to have access to your Bastion group and be able to make a little bridge over your ring vault. Your vault ends up being only sort of as secure as your Citadel group management, which is something that people often overlook.
Just another thing that people overlook, however, is also the permission layout of the group and how powerful that can be.
Yeah. Because the default allows people to do a lot more things than they should be able to do.
Yeah, you can, for example, with a Citadel group, if you was to take your Vault Bastion group, you can, in an instant, grant people the Bastion place and Bastion Pearl permission, and you can also revoke that in an instant. So, if your vault's under attack, you can grant that permission in the moment, so that your vault is safe from anyone who's on the group up until that point. However, obviously, if you're adding a lot of people that you don't necessarily know but they're willing to defend your vault, that's when afterwards the group becomes rather sketchy if you leave the permissions as they were.
I think the point you're trying to make is people only need permissions to actually place blocks in a Bastion field once the attack starts. They don't need it after the attack ends or leading up to an attack.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that you should definitely take away. And if you're a little confused about what we're talking about, go on a Civ server and type /NL, which will pull up the name layer GUI, which will make it much easier to see the actual permissions and what's toggled on the different groups that you're a part of. Anything else that you can think of that we should talk about?
Not really, like the difference between groups maybe, like have your Drow on one group, have your Cobwebs on a different group, Bastions on a different group, Caps on the Bastions on different groups.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you really, to understand sort of the group layout specifically for a Bastion vault, you have to think about all the different roles that people sort of have during a vault defense. Your PvPers who are defending a Bastion vault are only going to need to be able to break a couple of Diet. We're going to have to pause for a second.
Okay, so for various vaults, you probably want to use different groups for different things. So a classical setup for that I've personally used in the past would be I would have one group. For example, I'm going to use the Playpen groups as an example here. The playpen group would be the majority of the wealth of the vault. It would contain all the diamonds of the vault. It would contain all the iron reinforcements in the rings. It would also contain a majority of the cobwebs. The second group, Playpen Bastion, would be what the Bastions was reinforced to, and that group would be where all the defenders would be added to. Nowadays, people tend to go into a bit more depth, as in cobwebs will be usually reinforced to the same group as the Bastions now, so that mods and above could break out cobwebs in sticky situations, per se. No pun intended. But another thing I've seen people do is put snitches on a group different to the vault. So I personally would combine the Bastions and the snitches, but whatever floats people's boats. I guess compartmentalizing groups is a lot better. But if you're gonna look at it from the vault standpoint, who do you need on the majority of the wealth? Not really many people, only the people who donated to the vault, in a sense that you trust so much that you'd give them access to the whole wealth. So not many people need to be on the actual vault group that contains the wealth. The spike group should be trusted individuals. That should only be a fair few reinforcements, and possibly on the spike group, Bastion caps would also be reinforced too, so that people who are on the spikes can access the Bastions of the vault that defend it and repair them. Then the Bastion group is the majority group. This is where all the defenders is going to be. All the defenders are not going to need much more than Bastion access. That's all they need in one point. I know another group can come in handy sometimes, that defenders you can also add to, which is a repairs group in a way. So what a repairs group would be is a group that you can also add like defenders to. Then you can also supply defenders with reinforcements and blocks, so that in the case of a vault defense scenario, defenders can build and reinforce and effectively trap attackers, but those reinforcements will be on a group that you still control rather than defenders' personal groups.
Yeah.
So it makes it a lot easier when it comes to after the attack and you need to clean up the vault to basically get it ready again and fully functional. So have access.
During the playpen defense, I think there were at least 7 different Citadel groups that were privately owned that were used to create just walls to keep people from progressing down the rings. So it created a bit of a problem during the middle of the fighting, because essentially the leaders of the defense were not able to sort of morph the walls or change them or remove them because they were on people's personal groups.
Yeah. So in the end, usually those groups, that's what's becoming the normal now. Usually you have the majority wealth group, the spike group, the Bastion group, the cobweb group, and then a repairs group.
It's very understated how important it is to give general PvPers access to CT via a cobweb. A lot of defenders, surprisingly, will get caught in cobwebs and will be actually able to be killed before they're able to ender pearl out successfully. If you're getting smacked by 2 guys while you're sitting in a cobweb, it is very hard to throw an ender pearl past them to actually get out of that cobweb.
Yeah.
Where if you're able to just look down CTB, get out, and then start to actually be able to strafe them a little bit, you can ender pearl out to safety pretty easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, so vault management is very important. It's very understated. The more you prepare for it, the better off you'll be during an attack or a defense. Just a lot of it is just about mitigating risk by making sure that people are only on as much access as they need to actually be on. I think that's all for this episode. We'll probably talk about more on the next episode, which I think will probably be Bastions and Bastion rings and everything regarding Bastions.
Fun stuff.